Welcome to the first issue of the LifeCast. Um, this is a video cast about, well, pretty much anything. I'm your host, Ricky Williams, and I will be talking about anything that strikes my fancy. I might talk cars, comics, movies, TV shows, technology, photography, whatever else. I didn't want to be restricted by the name of the show, so I went as broad as I could with the title. I'll be doing this weekly, and you can also catch me on the podcast that I co host, Never Safe for Work. For now, you can catch us on YouTube, but we're working on getting it resubmitted in iTunes. I'll drop a link for that with some of the other social media networks that I'm on after the video. We talk about pretty much anything geek. As well as I was saying, you can catch me online on Tumblr. I'm at madtechr.tumblr.com. So that's madtechr.tumblr.com. On Twitter, I'm at Ricky_Williams1, and Instagram, I'm at GKanesDad. So that's GKANEZ Dad. So this week was my first shave with a straight razor. I live in Burlington, Ontario. So if you live in or around that area, I definitely suggest it's a cool thing to do. Awesome experience. Where I went was on Pine Street in downtown Burlington. There's a cigar shop called the Village Cigar, and then behind that is the barber shop. You can also make appointments online, so that's another way to go if you want to do it that way. The atmosphere in the barbershop is totally awesome, a little vintage feel. The guys in there are really great. And just the experience itself was definitely something I would recommend. If you read and or collect comics, which I do, again, if you live in Burlington, I go to a shop called Conspiracy Comics. I believe they're on Fairview Street, but they have other locations in Oakville and Hamilton. So if that's your area or closer to you, you can go there. You can find all the addresses on their website. Great people working in the shop. So if you're looking for a local comic shop or LCS, definitely I recommend checking them out. So I figured for the first issue that I would talk about podcasts. I listen to podcasts, so I figured I'd throw out the ones I listen to, explain a little bit what it's about, and you can check them out if it's something that interests you. So first up is This Weekend Marvel. This podcast is hosted primarily by editors Ryan Panagos and Ben Morris. Podcast covers all the Marvel comics released that week with a brief summary of the storyline. No spoilers. They're pretty good about that, but they do get you hyped up. They also do a reading club where they assign a comic and then they talk about it the following week. The podcast is just freaking awesome. It helps listeners discover great comics. Hosts are really great, funny, interact with the fans. Listeners can tweet them with using the hashtag This Week in Marvel, and then they'll read the tweets and respond. And the interaction is probably one of the things that I most love. Next up is iMore. This podcast is hosted by Renee Ritchie and is mostly about the iPhone and iPad. They do cover other tech gadgets as well. The co-hosts are great. Podcast is ultra informative. If you love iDevices or you know someone that does, definitely turn them on to this podcast. It's a great way of just cutting through all the nonsense that sometimes comes out about, uh, exploits or viruses that are, attacking iOS or OS X or whatever. Next one that I listen to is the Epic Comic Cast. Now that's EPIC COMICAST. Now, this is a great podcast hosted by a brother-sister duo, Karina Michelle and TC. They cover comics, comic-based movies, and video games. I've been listening to them from about the beginning, and they've just really grown. It's a great listen. They talk about movies in a way that would be great for comic readers, but also non-readers alike. They state their biases, they share their opinions and ideas and views, but they don't do it in a way as if it's fact. It's their opinion, and then it generates thought. You develop your own opinions, you disagree or agree. Um, and then you can write them back and they'll sometimes respond. They also have a website and an Instagram account, so it's a podcast I would definitely suggest you check out. Next up is MacBreak Weekly, hosted by Leo Laporte. This podcast is all kinds of awesome. It's for anything Apple related. They cover iPhone, iPad, Mac, OS X, iOS, Apple News. They usually have a great panel of guests, super informative show, and just hella funny. So, next up is Women of Marvel, and this podcast is hosted by some of the women inside Marvel. A great podcast. It highlights some of the roles that women play in the creation and production of comics and other Marvel things. At first, it might feel like a woman-only kind of clubhouse, but it's a great listen for anyone, really. So, check it out. Definitely check it out. So, finally, rounding out my podcast is Never Safe for Work. Save this one for last, just in an effort not to seem biased and self-serving, because I'm a co-host. I co-hosted with my two good friends, Matt and Vince. We started, I think, probably about 5 years ago. At that time, we were Tech Weekly. Since then, we've gone through just a myriad of names. Even now, we are resubmitting to iTunes as NSFW, Never Safe for Work, but we may be changing that to the 3cast, just because it hasn't been so successful. We're three ethnically diverse guys, and we talk comics, movies, video games, sometimes tech. There is swearing and rants, but we generally have a good time. So you can catch us for now on YouTube, both on this channel and another channel, which I will be linking to at the end of this. Usually we're on Wednesdays at 9 p.m., but the YouTube goes up later. So, you can follow at NSFW on Twitter, and there's usually a link where you can catch us live, and then you can look on the YouTube channel later. So now, I think let's talk about some comic-based TV shows, because those have been getting pretty popular. I'm not going to go and issue a spoiler warning, which I probably never will going forward, because, it's just, to me, it's kind of obvious. If I'm going to talk about a show or a comic or a movie, I state which show or comic or movie or whatever I'm going to be talking about. So if you're not caught up, then don't watch, don't listen, go get caught up, and then come back. So the ones I watch regularly are Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I know is not ultra popular, and also The Flash. These two grabbed my interest, though my interest for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was starting to dip a bit, but it has picked back up this season. So we'll see how it goes from here. Flash has always been solid for me, but I'm a huge Flash fan in the comics, so perhaps that kind of has something to do with it. I've also started to watch the Netflix Daredevil first season, and this to me is finally a Marvel TV show done right. Up until now, if I'm going to be honest, DC has been handing Marvel their ass on a platter, which is, it's okay, because for me, when it comes to the big screen, Marvel just rules there. I don't personally think DC even comes close. Um, the other shows that are out just really don't interest me. Gotham didn't interest me to watch even the first episode. In comics, I'm lukewarm on Batman. Maybe that had something to do with it. I still haven't watched an episode. Probably never will. Arrow was the same. It just didn't grab me. I saw the commercials on TV. Never really been a big fan again in the comics of Green Arrow. Maybe that has something to do with it. Now on the Marvel side, there aren't many yet, but Agent Carter, which is one, is definitely a non-starter for me. Didn't watch any of the episodes, but I'm thinking of trying to go through to see maybe if it's just a slow starter and it will hook me. We'll see. I mean, the character Agent Carter was in the Captain America movies, but it's not a character that pulled me. Like if it had been a Black Widow TV show, showing the backstory of how Natasha Romanoff became Black Widow, then I probably would have watched. But we'll see. We'll see. I think I'm going to check it out, and I'll come back and we'll talk about it. So let's talk about the ones I do watch. Let's talk about Agents of Shield. Um, the last season, like I said, sort of picked me up, but the one before that, it kind of felt like the show had gotten lost. Shield was overtaken by Hydra. Coulson was in charge of what's left. Agent Ward was a traitor. Then they built up this new team. They had Bobby, Mac, a few other guys. Then it turned out that Bobby and Mac were traitors, sort of in their own way. It just felt like it kind of got lost. I mean, when it began, it was it was about this team of Shield agents that was out there investigating these strange happenings. And like I said, there was Agent Ward was part of Hydra, so he was a traitor. That in itself was a good play because it was just the first time. But then they kind of built back up a team. It had this sort of family feel to it. But again, there were these two traders, Bobby and Mac, who were on this different shield, and I don't know that whole aspect. They kind of brought it back this season for me. They introduced the Inhumans aspect, which Sky is one. In the season finale, Gemma got taken by the Kree artifact that they were holding, so we don't know what kind of consequences that will have. We don't even know if Sky is going to remain a SHIELD agent or is she going to leave to go and lead the Inhumans, which her mother was doing before she died. So, I guess we'll see that when the new season starts up. For me, what I hope for the show that would really get me interested again is I want them to just become like a little unit again, like a team, or for Coulson to sort of cement his role as the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I want them to bring in more of that, whether they do it with the Inhumans, maybe they could bring in some more Marvel characters like Medusa, Black Bolt, definitely Lockjaw, but, bring in some more of the Marvel family. So we'll see. Now, The Flash. That show was just phenomenal since I've been watching it. No problems at all. The ending of this season was kind of a cliffhanger. We had the death of Eddie Thawne, the death of Eobard Thawne, or the Reverse Flash, which they finally found out. We had the little winged cap, which, if you know the comics, you know that is from Jay Garrick, the original Flash. So, maybe when Barry Allen went into the time stream and was, mucking about. Maybe that either pulled Jay Garrick out of the Speed Force or pulled him out of his own timeline. Now, if you have been watching the trailers online for the upcoming DC shows, you will know that number one, Barry Allen's not going to die, and number two, Reverse Flash doesn't seem to die either, because they're both in Legends of Tomorrow. So that was a bit of a spoiler for this season finale. Regardless, however, it still had, a cliffhangery feel to it, because I don't know if Eddie Thawne's gonna die, because that he is what comes between Barry and Iris, who obviously in the comics they become married. So, with him dying, somehow I think Barry Allen's gonna go back in time, or somehow he will get saved. And Iris, knowing that, is probably gonna go against that whole destined to be married to Barry Allen sort of timeline scenario. We'll see, we'll see. Um, Now, with the upcoming shows, I'm definitely not feeling DC's Supergirl at all. For me, it's the simple fact that they decided to change Jimmy Olsen. They changed him to be a black dude. Now, I don't like it when shows change a character in order to be more appealing to the audience. If you want more black people in the show, it's simple. Create a new character or new characters, new villains, new superheroes. Why couldn't he have been a love interest for Supergirl? Why couldn't he be the guy that they have who is just super into Supergirl, but she doesn't seem to notice? Now, I am of mixed heritage. I'm black, so it's obviously not a racial thing. I don't care that, there's a black guy, but, Jimmy Olsen is an established character. They wrote the comics. He was a white dude with red hair. As a writer, if you write something, you envision that character. So for, a TV show to go and change that, aspects of that character, I personally just feel that that's wrong. I'm not saying anyone else out there, if you watch it and you love it, that's great. Just for me, that is the reason I will not watch it. I feel like it's lazy. If you can create new characters, new heroes, new villains, but they don't want to do that. They don't want to take the chance that the audience will like that. They want to go with a character that is already developed, already has backstory that some people will know. Um, Now if we go to Legends of Tomorrow, that looks wicked. I'm gonna be looking out for this one for sure. You got Captain Cold, you got Firestorm, you got White Canary, the Flash, Reverse Flash, time travel. It's just, if you haven't seen it, go to YouTube, do a search for Legends of Tomorrow, watch it. It's If you love comics, if you love TV shows based on comics, check it out. So finally, for this issue of the LifeCast, what I wanted to talk about is Silicon Valley, the show on HBO. It follows a bunch of programmers who are trying to make it with their startup Pied Piper. I caught this show last year. Definitely loved the crap out of it. So if you're a tech person, I feel that there's a good chance you're gonna love the show. The show's funny as shit. It's got great guest stars from the tech industry. It's just enjoyable. It's got a mature theme, so it's not a show that you'll be sitting down to watch with your kids. The show is about a group of guys going through the different trials of getting a startup off the ground in Silicon Valley. Basically from the feedback that I've gotten from some of my friends, I think you will either like it or you won't. That just seems to be the way it goes with this show. I personally love it. I recommend starting with season 1 before you jump into season 2. But I see that the show is definitely listening to their viewers out there, and they seem to be making changes. For instance, this season, one of the complaints about season 1 was that they didn't really have a lot of women in the tech field, or if they did, it was sort of the typical stereotype of women who don't really know anything about programming and need the guy's help, or sort of the straight-laced, button-down kind of view. So this season they've got more women on the cast, different roles, different looks. So I think they are listening. I think the show is funny as hell, and I just want more viewers for it. I want more seasons. So yeah, HBO, get it done. So now we have come to the end of issue 1 of LifeCast. So I'll see you in a week. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see what we talk about next week.